Hello and welcome to the Bucket Lister podcast. Join your host Keith Crockford along with special guests who have travelled the world, here to share stories of their adventures and plenty of inspo to add to your bucket list. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. And we are back today chatting with Jake. Hello, Jake.
Hi, Keith.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Yeah, how was it?
Yeah, it was family New Year. It was quite quiet. So it was I went to Centre Parks, like it's like a busman's holiday, like, you know, all the activities, and you know, it's just kind of feels like it's back at work for a day, really, when you're like taking the kids around.
Abseiling, rock climbing.
Yeah, high ropes, yeah. Like down the rapids 57 times a day. Yeah, it was so yeah, it was all good. So we're back for the podcast. It is 2023. This is the first episode of 2023. So I think this might even be episode 26, I think.
Yeah, so it's got to be close to that, at least.
Yeah, and I think like
26.
I've managed to do an episode every week for half a year. We're getting close to the half a year spot. So and people are still listening, which is amazing. Like, you know, I'm not talking to myself every week, which is surprising, really. So Jake and I had a quick chat about what we were going to discuss today on this podcast. And one question, I mean, one of our most popular trips is Everest Base Camp. And you did it, I did it once last year. You did it twice.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest questions, and it's probably more of a panic, isn't it, like from people like the week before they go, is packing for the weight limit for Everest Base Camp.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, you know, and people kind of don't understand that they've got like a 25 kilo weight limit on the international flight to Kathmandu. But then obviously they are then restricted to their 15 kilo weight limit for the flight to Lukla. And people kind of go, I'm on a 13-day trek. How am I going to pack for this amount of time within 15 kilos? And we thought today we would just kind of have a little chat and go through our packing procedure for base camp. So when we go to base camp, the limit on the flight is 15 kilos, but that is also 15 kilo includes your duffel bag, and it also includes your day pack as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's the two combined.
And the other thing that people have to consider as well, though, is that actually somebody's going to carry that duffel bag as well, so they can't just take.
No, people forget about that. I think it becomes quite like you're trying to pack all of the kit and there's loads of extras that you want, and and it's easy to fill a bag. But yeah, when you're trying to think of shortcuts and things like that, and cramming all the weight in, you forget that some poor guy's got to carry not only yours but somebody else's. And people suddenly cotton onto that when they somebody picks it up on the other side, and you watch them struggle with it, and then they all start feeling a little bit bad.
So basically your porters will strap two people's duffel bags together, and then they'll basically put the band across the top of their head, and then they will carry your duffel bags every day on the trail like that. And it's quite funny, isn't it, when one of the members of our group will ask one of the porters if they can try and pick up the bags.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times. I think it's really important, actually. It's quite interesting. Like I really enjoy doing it, just reminding myself. It helps when I'm packing to keep the weight down. But I've given it a couple of goes, and it's incredible how they carry it, the distances that they do. Because the strain on your neck, if you're not used to it, is
you certainly wouldn't walk very far with it, would you?
No, I think I probably did about 10 meters. And I wouldn't recommend it, to be fair, actually, having thought about it, because my neck was sore for a few days afterwards. Maybe don't try that. But
so then, Jake, talk us through then packing for Everest Base Camp and what you do to get your bag down to the 15 kilo weight limit.
So yeah, it does look a little bit daunting when you're looking at the kit list and you're trying to figure out, all of the essential items that you need. And obviously, if you've not been there before, it's quite hard to work out. I've definitely learned a lot over the last few trips that I've done. I struggled the first time I went. It was, everything seemed really important, and the 5 pairs of trousers that they all seem to be important for a different reason. And then when you get out there and you realize that actually you are going to be wearing the same pair of trousers for multiple days and everybody's doing the same, so you don't need to worry too much about packing loads of the same, or loads of different trousers and tops and things like that. So yeah, I tend to have a couple of sets of walking kit, and a lot of it is on like a layering system. So I'll start off with t-shirts and either shorts or thin trousers as you start off lower down, and then basically just add layers as I go. So I'll have a couple of sets of walking kit, and then I'll have one outfit that I just reserve for a tea house or for the tea houses. So it'll be like a nice fleece and some comfy trousers, and that'll be what I'll wear in the evening. So it kind of helps preserve the length of time that I can wear all of those things. So that's one way that I help keep the weight down, is just being a little bit smart with my layering system. The other one is on the Lukla flight. There's a few things that we always say to clients about, how they can get just around the 15 kilos. If you're slightly over, things that I do and you do is we'll wear our big heavy mountaineering boots, or whatever our heaviest pair of boots is that we're taking on the trip. I'll wear that for the flight because they only weigh your bags, so they don't really weigh you individually. So I'll be wearing my boots, I'll be wearing my big big thick jacket, because you might start off a little bit hot in Kathmandu, but actually as soon as you land in Lukla, you're kind of glad of it, and then when you do get hiking, you just shove that back into your duffel bag.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? You, as soon as you land back in Lukla, you're reunited with your duffel bag anyway, so you can then put a few things back in it if you need to. But obviously, again, you do have to think about the porters at this point, and actually, you can't suddenly just carry 7 kilos worth on yourself and add it all into your duffel bag.
You can't do that. I mean, like I said, I think my jacket, my boots, and maybe a few extra cereal bars would be the extent of what I would shove on my person. Because if you are walking up to the security scanners looking like the Michelin Man, the guys are probably going to have a word.
Yeah. And what we're talking about, the aeroplane flight here to Lukla, but if you are taking the helicopter, then they do weigh you as well for the helicopter, because obviously the helicopter has to have a critical weight when it's flying at the altitude. So if you're just be aware that if you're going onto a helicopter ride, then actually they will weigh you and both of your bags as well to make sure what's going in. When we've been there with groups, sometimes we've had to change who's flying on the plane to make sure you've got a couple of light ones going with a couple of heavier ones in the group on the helicopter. But you don't need to do that so much on the. I mean, one for me is things like your battery packs. Like they always go in my pocket because they are quite heavy. But yeah, I think the thing to do is, I always think, is having, like I say, I always remember the first time I did it, and then when you get back to Kathmandu, you can kind of look at what you haven't used in your bag to realize, actually, I did take too much on that trip.
I think everyone takes too much kit. I mean, yeah, although there's ways to get around being a kilo over, if you did want to put your battery packs in, your mountain, wearing your heavy boots, wearing your big jacket, like, those are things that most people tend to do. But really, if you're going up to, if you're doing the Gokyo Lakes or Island Peak, it's a little bit tighter because that's the same weight limit. But for going up to Everest Base Camp and back again, there's no real reason that you need to be over 15 kilos. One thing that I have noticed over the years, though, and this is something that people could start thinking about if their trip's a little bit away in the distance and they haven't bought things like their bag yet, is how heavy the bag itself is. Because when you're picking a good hiking rucksack, we use the low alpine ones, don't we?
Yeah.
And they're great. They're brilliant bits of kit. It's lasted me for a long time. It is one of the heavier bags out there, and other people who decide to go for lighter options actually benefit when you've got those weight restrictions, because they can put that extra bit of kit in. Whereas my bag itself is about a kilo and a half, and my duffel bag's a little bit lighter, but that's automatically deducted from my total of 15. So it's just, if you are shopping for a bag and you are looking for kit, potentially, as long as it's not sacrificing the durability of the bag, start thinking about how heavy your day pack is and how heavy your duffel bag is, because you can save a couple of kilos that you can make up with extra trousers or pants or boxers or socks.
I think that's the really important thing, isn't it? Is because like I can just about pack for an Everest Base Camp Trek in a medium size North Face duffel bag.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you've got a smaller duffel bag, you are less likely to try and fill it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like,
I think whatever size bag you've got, you're going to try and fill. So if you've got a medium bag, then you'll fill that. If you've got a large bag, it becomes all too easy to fill it. I would say on that is going slightly larger than you potentially need, but only like a little bit, just means when you get to the tea house at night and you're rummaging around for your kit, it makes it a bit easier. Whereas if you've intricately packed everything, unless you're a super neat person all the time, which I'm not.
I've shared a room with you a few times, Jake. Like, you are
I don't think I'm too bad.
You like to get everything out your bag and make sure it's all still there before the next morning,
Yeah. I just forget what I've packed sometimes. My mum does it for me, so I'll just check. No, so I think there's a couple of things that you can make your life easier. So if you get slightly larger, then it means you can rummage around a bit easier. If you've intricately packed everything into a really small bag, then that's great, and you will have saved some space and things, but you will end up taking more of your kit out to find certain items when you get into the tea house. But a lot of that's personal preference.
And I think importantly as well, though, like, you can pretty much buy everything you need on the trail.
Yeah, I think for people who have done like Kilimanjaro or other treks where they're not used to having such a good like support network, if you like, going up, then that's going to be really bizarre to them, because they're going to try and pack 2 weeks worth of snacks and energy gels and bars and all that, all that sort of stuff with them. And actually, what I say to people as well, I tend not to bring any of that stuff. Like, I'll stock up when we get to places like Lukla, Namche, Dingboche. I'll tend to do kind of bigger shops, if you like, around sort of those areas. And yeah, they're selling Snickers bars and Pringles and sweets and all that sort of stuff that you might want as you go. So you don't need to pack it all in at the beginning. You can leave a good chunk of that stuff behind. But
also as well, though, you don't. It's not like a Kilimanjaro trek or a Toubkal trek where there's one option for dinner, and if you don't like it, then you're going to go hungry. So you take stuff like. You are choosing off a menu as well every day, aren't you? So you haven't got to then go, well, I'm going to take something to supplement just in case I don't like what we're given. Like, you can get fried eggs and chips, you can get soup, you can, you choose what you want. So I think you probably need far less snacks and things like that, because when you get, if you've got a bit of a sweet tooth, you go to the bakery and buy yourself a cinnamon roll or a piece of apple pie or you've got those options on the Everest Base Camp Trek, haven't you?
Yeah, and it's definitely getting better. Like, I've noticed that over the years, that's just becoming more and more available. If there's something that you really like, that that when you're a little bit tired and you're a little bit hungry, that's going to really cheer you up, and it's something that's unique and you potentially won't be able to get out there, then yeah, bring that if that's going to be a bit of motivation for you. But chocolate bars and crisps and sweets and all that sort of stuff, they do tend to sell as you go to the trail. And like you said, the meals, you're ordering off a menu, you do actually get fed really, really well when you're there, and you've got a big range of choice. The only thing that I've started bringing recently that goes onto my personal kit list, and that I've noticed has made a bit of a difference for me, is I just take some like multivitamin tablets. They don't weigh a thing. And, with the amount of exercise that you're doing during the day, taking a couple of those just keeps me and my recovery time really, really strong. But otherwise, I'm getting everything else I need from the food from the tea houses.
Yeah, and the other thing that I find as well about the kit list especially for base camp, is like you do want a load of wicking tops to wear. Mm-hmm. Like quite often, I think I got to low boucher in shorts this year. I don't think I put trousers on until I got to low boucher. So I think I had 2 pairs of trekking shorts. I had 2 pairs of trekking trousers. I think I had calculated my wicking tops that they'd last 2 days each. So I had 6 sort of base layery sort of sports tops. Mm-hmm. But they, you can get those in Kathmandu so easy. You can get those in Lukla. They're not the real thing. I'll just say this now. They might have Arc'teryx on them, or they might have North Face on them, but they are made out of exactly the same material as.
They're not bad. They're not bad at all.
They're a couple of quid. Like, if you're only ever going to do an Everest Base Camp Trek and you're never going to go and do anything else, and you're like, well, I'm never going to use these wicking t-shirts again. Mm-hmm. Then, we had people buying like down trousers in Namche this year. Like, they had North Face written on them, but I don't think they came out of the North Face factory. But they're perfect for what they are.
Namche is one of those really amazing places where you will get all the knockoffs, and and they're pretty much the same thing. And they do, as you're walking through Namche, you've got all of the shops, just with loads of things outside. You've got jackets and down trousers and stuff like that. But what a lot of people find quite interesting as you're walking through, and one of the things that you learn when you're out there is that a lot of climbers who are climbing nearby peaks or Everest itself, as they're coming back down, it works out for them cheaper to sell it to more cost effective to sell it to some of the local shops, sell their jackets and their climbing equipment to the local shops, rather than pay that extra baggage allowance to go on to the Lukla flight. So you can pick up kit that's actually, authentic and real and has been used by somebody going up, those mountains, and you can get it for an absolute bargain. So, I had somebody who was going out to Nepal earlier on this, or last year, sorry. And they were saying, what do I need to buy? What do I need to get? And I said, if you want to get it all here, that's fine. I said, but hypothetically, you could rock up in Kathmandu and just get it all there. So, or Lukla, once you've done that flight, if you wanted to pick up an extra, if you were worried about the weight and you're like, I don't feel like I've got enough fleeces, I don't feel like I've got enough, of what I want, then for a couple of quid, you can pick that stuff up in Lukla and then just either give it to some of the guides on the way back or flog it back.
And exactly. And if you are doing Island Peak, then that kit, you can hire a lot of that kit in Dingboche or Chakung as well. So, you haven't got to take everything with you if you don't want to. I think one of my biggest weight saving tips, and again, if you haven't already bought one, is your sleeping bag, because I think that's the thing that could basically add a lot of weight and a lot of bulk to your bag. And you read online that, people are saying that they need a 4-season sleeping bag and it needs to go down to -15. And like, I'm too hot in my -5 sleeping bag most days when I'm on, it's only near the top when you get close to this, to Gorik Shep, so Low Boucher, Gorik Shep.
I was going to say Low Boucher and Gorik Shep is when I actually used my sleeping bag for the first time, and it is a it's a proper Rab winter mountain sleeping bag, and it does keep you really warm. But I only used it from then onwards because all the tea houses supply you with blankets.
Yeah,
when you do go into those rooms and things, so you sleep in, or for me, I'll sleep in my sleeping bag liner. Yeah, and then over the top of that, I'll pull all of the blankets over from the, that they've already supplied in the tea house. And if you are,
I personally wouldn't use the blankets on their own, like you say.
No.
Yeah, they're probably not washed between uses, but just to put them over your sleeping bag liner is perfectly fine.
Use the sleeping bag liner to kind of keep clean, and I know it's I know it's all right. And then just for the warmth, the blankets coming out. And if you are looking at saving weight, then buying some of those like thermal sleeping bag liners, when you lower down, you can get away pretty much with just using those and a blanket. And then when you get higher up, you can potentially use a slightly lighter sleeping bag or like a 3-season rather than a full 4-season, because they're expensive bits of kit as well. If you're
but if you go and buy a synthetic -10 sleeping bag, it could potentially be really bulky and it could weigh like 2.5 kilos.
Easily. Yeah.
Like my down 3-season sleeping bag, I think weighs about 750 grams, I think. So in terms of the extra stuff that I can take with me on the trek, because I've got a lighter sleeping bag, it makes such a difference.
Well, I think this is one of the big differences between, people like you and I who do this regularly, is that we've invested in certain bits of kit because we are doing this all the time. And what that means is that usually it's a little bit lighter, and that then in turn means that you can bring something else. So you get an extra item for free almost. So I think if people are looking at, getting kit for their trip and things like that, first of all, remember you can hire things. So don't worry about it costing an arm and a leg, because you can hire certain items.
Rab have got a really good hire service now. You can hire everything direct from Rab, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the Rab hire. But you could get a really lightweight down sleeping bag off Rab that, yes, all right, it's going to probably cost you, I don't know what the higher prices are, £80-100 for an Everest Base Camp Trek or something. But, to go and buy a decent sleeping bag, that's going to be lightweight and for what you need, probably going to cost you £450 to buy it. Yes, you can. Yes, you can go outdoors. Yes, you can go in Mountain Warehouse and buy a 4-season sleeping bag. But like we say, it is going to weigh 2.5 kilos and be really, super bulky in your duffel bag.
It's just things to consider when you are shopping and you are buying bits of kit. Is okay. Well, rather than getting one super big heavy mountaineering jacket, is it worth getting a fleece and a lighter down jacket and doubling up and saving yourself the weight? You'll be just as warm, and it means that you could take 2 fleeces instead of 1. It's all sort of trade-offs. And then for those extra, those what I call luxury items, first of all, working out, is it 100% worth it? And if it is, I look at things and go, does it have 2 uses rather than just one? And then that's ways that you can save yourself a bit of weight. Is, can things double up as other things and all that kind of stuff? But I mean, the kit list that you've put together is, I say to people, as long as they follow all the essential stuff on that, then you can't.
Yeah, and I think that is part of the problem, isn't it? Is because people go onto the kit list and they go and they follow all the essential stuff, but sometimes a fleece can be a lot heavier if you go and buy a cheaper fleece, maybe, or like we were just talking about sleeping bags then, or actually when you're doing this all the time, our stuff tends to be a lot lighter weight.
Yeah,
but generally it's more expensive, which is it's
more
a trade-off between.
It's taken me, I'd say, a good few years to build up to the kit that I've got now. Where I'm not, spending loads of money every time I go away. But I was renting kit and hiring kit and borrowing stuff off mates and all that. And I have had people say to me, actually, on the last trip, I had somebody come up to me and go, I've bought everything on the kit list and I'm still overweight. And then when you start looking at things, you're like, well, yeah, because your tracksuit trousers weigh 3 kilos and, this weighs this much and this way. So although you've got all of the items, you've actually inadvertently chosen, really, you haven't accounted for that weight. Whereas you could have bought a couple of quid or, like a tenner's worth of the down trousers in Namche, which would have been loads lighter than the trackies that you're taking and still would have done the same job. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make.
I think you're right. It's, there always has to be some sacrifices, I think, like in terms of, the kit list is there as a guide, and there are some, for me, a clean pair of socks every day is essential. Like,
it's the same. It's the same for me. Yeah.
like, I will. Like, you see people and they put in their favorite hoodie for in the tea houses in the evening, like, because they want that nice snuggly hoodie to put on. Well, I'll leave that hoodie behind and actually have a clean pair of socks every day. That's the one thing for me that I don't.
Yeah, and a lot of that actually, there's a good part of that comes down to like personal preference. And if one of the last trips I was on, Gareth and I were out at the same time, and even though we were both, under the 15 kilos and we had everything that we needed to, it was interesting to see what we'd chosen to, kind of like bring and not bring compared to each other. So, like I said, so for me, I'll bring like a pair of socks, or at least enough for like one almost every day. Although,
but then at the same time, I've got, I'll bring some really lightweight trekking socks for like the first few days when it's going to be warmer. And actually the thick, heavier ones, I only need 2 pairs of those for the last couple of days. You don't want to go out and buy 12 pairs of thick trekking socks, because actually a really thin, lightweight pair of trekking socks will do you for the majority of the days on the trek.
Yeah, so I mean, I tend to reuse those bigger, pairs of socks, and also have one that's designated just for like the tea house. I tend to bring my iPad just because, for doing like those daily reports and taking people's, oxygen levels and all that sort of stuff that we check in the evening.
No, it's nice to watch your films on when you go to bed. It's got nothing to do with your work.
Okay, well, there's a bit of that, yeah.
You could write your report on your phone. No, but I'm the same. Like, I will always have my iPad in my bag. I mean, it stays in my day pack with me. But again, you have a lot of downtime on the EBC trek, so you do want to have a book, you do want to have your Kindle, you do want to have something to actually just chill out and do.
Yeah, I mean, but then I'm not taking any snacks.
Yeah.
So that's for me, that's a trade-off. That's a decision that I've made.
And if you took snacks, that'd be like 7 kilos worth of snacks, wouldn't it? Just to.
Well, that's why I've got to buy it out there. I'm convinced this one tea house lady, every time I come over, she gets so excited because she knows I'm about to drop like a month's worth of wages on on food.
On Mars bars.
On Mars bars, yeah.
So in terms of, like you just talked about your iPad then, what's the one thing that you make sure you do always take? What's that one item that you want to have with you?
I mean, yeah, for me, recently it's been my iPad. That's something that I'll make sure I always take with me. What else? I think it's a tough one because there's a couple of things that I will take more recently. So my iPad's one. I have started bringing like a little thing of multivitamins. I've just found that my recovery time is loads better. And then probably my down slippers. Actually, yeah, I've got a pair of like down boots. And the first time I did Everest Base Camp, you and I bought them in Kathmandu, and they were great, and and they did the job perfectly. And then for Christmas a couple of years ago, I got given a pair of North Face down slippers, and wearing those around the tea house, I'd say that's something that I always take with me. It just makes a big difference.
Yeah, because you can't walk around the tea. You've got to take your shoes off around the tea house. They don't have outdoor shoes in a lot of the dining rooms and places like that. So again, and also as well, you don't want to be wearing your boots all the time. It's just nice sometimes to get, and it is, the tea houses can be cold in the evening.
Yeah.
So like just having something warm on your feet makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'd say that's probably for me. That's like, it's not essential, because if you're wearing like trainers for the beginning and then boots higher up, or if you're wearing boots for the whole thing, you can, get around it. But yeah, to be able to put your feet into something comfortable at the end of the day is makes a big difference, especially higher up.
It's a bit cold for flip-flops, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, what about you? What's your?
I was going to say my down booties. Actually, that was one thing I was going to say. I mean, a buff.
Our buffs are great. Yeah, that's a really good one. I was preaching about the buffs last trip.
I mean, it's what a lot of people will get a cough on the Everest Base Camp Trek. They call it the Kumbu cough. there's that many yaks walking past you, it gets really dusty, and you just end up, a lot of people on the way back down have just got a really sort of really bad cough. So to have a buff just to kind of cover your nose and your mouth.
I suppose a little thing of moisturizer as well. I know that makes a big difference to a lot of people, because you are up and, as you get higher up, the sun gets more intense, and, and you do take a bit of a battering like that can.
Yeah.
Lip salve as well.
Lip balm. Yeah. That's really important. A good pair of sunglasses like there.
Yeah. That makes a big difference.
That makes a huge difference.
Although I did end up, mine broke on the last trip about halfway through. And I think we were in, it was Namche or Dingboche, and I did have to go shopping for a pair. And do you know what? Actually, surprisingly, even though they said Bayran on the side, they were actually all right. And I think I've still got those. But yeah, good pair of sunglasses is kind of essential.
Yeah, and I think over the last few years, the water to go bottles, those sort of filtered water bottles have been really handy, because water is expensive to buy. Well, bottled water is expensive to buy.
Bottled water is really expensive to buy. And it is something that, like, I'll tend to go on about on my trips is, have you been drinking enough water? Because altitude sickness and dehydration have a lot of the same, signs and symptoms. So if I'm trying to work out how you're feeling or why you're feeling that way, then I tend to just say, well, how much water have you been drinking? And usually it's not enough. So you are going to get through quite a lot. And as you get higher, because everything's been carried, all of those bottles of water have to be transported up on foot. It gets a lot more expensive. So if you want to cut out, it might seem like, those water to go bottles, like 30 quid, something like that.
Yeah, 20, 25 quid, I think.
20, like 25 quid.
I mean, and there are a lot of places to... Yeah, and there are a lot of, one's adequate, because there's enough, you pass enough places to refill it. So it's not like you need to pack 2 at the start of the day and you're not going to have the opportunity to fill them up again as you go. So yeah, I suppose, the water to go bottles would be my thing that I would always pack in my bag, the buff. And then same as you, the iPad, like you say, you get a lot of downtime, just to be able to go in, get into your sleeping bag in the evening or get into your and just watch a film that you've downloaded or read a book on it, or you've got the best of both worlds if you've got
you're doing something physical every day. You're hiking, even on our they're not rest days, they're acclimatization days. You're getting out and you're acclimatizing by hiking up to a like a viewpoint or something notable. So actually prioritizing your recovery and your rest is going to make a big difference. That when you do have that time, make sure you make the most of it and you actually are able to recover, because you're going to be doing it again the next day. And if you've not been resting and you've been running around and playing football at silly altitudes, you might feel it a bit in the morning.
And pack of playing cards as well. That's always nice to, if you're like, with our groups.
That's a really good one, because you do get a lot of downtime, but some of the best fun I've had has been sat around at tea houses and playing cards, and when people it's the people that bring things like that, and you do all sit around and chat and have a laugh, and it's really nice. So
when you do tend to go to bed really early, don't you? Like there isn't you generally get kicked out of the dining room in the tea house because they're on solar power. They don't want to keep the fire burning. Normally by about sort of like 9, 9:30, they're sort of wanting you to head down to bed, aren't they? And
I'd say you get a few hours between when you arrive at the tea house for the night, and then you get a couple of hours sometimes before dinner, and then a couple of hours after dinner, and then you'll go to bed quite early. But in those few hours, that's where it's really nice to just sit around and all catch up and have a laugh. And
earplugs.
Oh, earplug! Yeah, I can't believe I forgot that. Earplugs.
The walls are very thin in tea houses.
Yeah, actually,
it might not even be somebody that you're sharing with. It might be the person 2 rooms down that you can hear.
It's something that's always in my wash kit, actually. So now you mention it, it is always, and I've got a couple of just a couple of strips of them. But if you get caught out and somebody in the next room snoring, or actually, we had it last time. There was just some people chatting and stuff. Yeah, you'll be grateful you've got them. And which one is it? Sometimes you get the dogs barking. Is that
Pembrokeshire.
Pembrokeshire? Yeah, that's it. A lot of people sometimes. I mean, I'm quite a deep sleeper, so I'm usually all right. But yeah, sometimes you get some of the dogs barking outside. So although for most of it you're fine. Yeah, some earplugs. You'll be grateful if you've got them.
Yeah, and even in Namche, once one dog starts barking, like you just hear them barking round the valley. Like if you're a light sleeper, then
yeah, and I mean they really don't weigh anything, so there's no excuse for not sticking some of those in.
I think I can pretty much get my EBC bag down to like 10, 11, like 11 kilos, and that's without the need to start like Tony and Gareth had a competition once on Island Peak where they were trying to get their bags as light as possible, and they were cutting the ends off their toothbrushes to make them lighter, yeah. And like and I think it's people want to take their cameras and their lenses, and obviously if you want to start taking that sort of stuff, then you are going to need to sacrifice something else in your bag, like it is. And I will just point out that if you are really struggling with the weight, then you can actually pay to take extra weight. But the problem you have is it might not actually come on the same plane that you're on. It could come on a later plane. So that's why we kind of don't advise to do it, because if your duffel bag, which is 25 kilos, suddenly they can't get it on the plane you're on, and then the weather comes in and your bag doesn't follow. Like there's a bit of, I mean, yes, it's going to eventually get to you, but it might not get to you until the next day or, a couple of days later. So, we try and advise against that. And we try and say, if you can get your stuff within the weight limit, then do it the best you can. Really.
Yeah. I mean, there's no, like I said, I think 15 kilos is completely achievable. There's no real reason. I mean, it does just become those trade-offs and those, okay, I'm not going to take 5 cameras. I'm going to take, I tend to use my phone for most of it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not, a particularly good photographer. So there are other people who do prioritize that. But yeah, even though you can take a bit more if you choose to pay for it. I think I just wouldn't want to risk it. I mean, I think it was Ben Fogle who ended up getting all the way to like Lobachet, and he literally just had what he'd worn on the Lukla flight because his bag had been sent onto the next plane, and that got delayed because of weather. And then like a big weather thing came in, and yeah, he went up to Lobachet in shorts or something. Yeah. So personally, I don't think I'd want to risk it.
And also as well that you're going to have to carry that extra weight in your day pack because it can't go in your duffel bag because the porters can't carry any more than what I think it's 12 kilos your duffel bag can weigh. So a porter can carry 24 kilos or 25 kilos between the two bags. So you're either going to have to hire another porter for yourself to carry that extra weight, or you're going to have to carry it yourself. So,
and that might be fine for the first couple of days. Like I've had people who have had quite heavy day packs. They've chosen to take loads of things. Their duffel bag was completely fine, but they were like, no, I'd rather have it with me, or, whatever it is. And, for the first 2 days, even though there's a lot of ascent, they've been fine because the altitude's not too bad. And then from Namche onwards, they've started struggling considerably because every kilo starts feeling like about 5.
Especially once you whack 2 kilos of water in your bag, or 2 liters of water is 2 kilos, like another.
You might be able to go out into the Lake District or Wales or something with a massive backpack that's like 30 kilos or whatever it is. You might be going up and down those hills training like that, but there's nowhere near what you're feasibly going to be able to carry at that altitude, and that's what a lot of people forget. So you do want it to be nice and manageable for you.
Yeah. Well, Jake, I think we've pretty much covered that topic off in terms of packing. Obviously, we're not going to go through every single item. We're just going to talk about what we put in our bags, etc. I will link a copy of our kit list into the show notes, just so you can see what we advise to take, what we advise our customers to take with them on their trip. And I'll also put a link to there's a YouTube video as well on YouTube where I go through packing a bag for Everest Base Camp and go through the individual things. But on a podcast, when you can't really see anything, it's hard to describe something. So we just wanted to kind of talk about how we pack our bag, how we get it within the weight limit, and go from there. Jake, thanks ever so much for joining us again.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I think we probably, we might do another one of these in a couple of weeks' time, maybe looking at Kilimanjaro, because again, it comes up quite a bit on Kilimanjaro, and that's a 12 kilo weight limit. Well, between 10, 11 kilos, they kind of want the duffel bags to be on Kili. And it's a much shorter trek, so it kind of is slightly easier, but maybe we'll record one and talk about Kili as well at that point.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, thanks ever so much, everyone, for listening. And we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. Be sure to click follow to be alerted for next week's episode. For more travel inspiration, check us out at www.thebucketlistcompany.co.uk or follow us on socials. See you next time.